Okay, it looks like we're live, so here goes. Oops. I practiced that so many times. Hello and welcome to Take Your Pick. I am your moderator, Chris Piuma, and I've gathered these fabulous panelists, and we're all going to be making a mixtape that we'll have to listen to until the end of time. The only catch, it's going to be filled with nothing but one-hit wonders from the 80s. And, of course, once someone picks a song, no one else will get to have it on their personal forever mixtape, the one that's glued into their Walkman forever.
This was not communicated.
Oh yes, the tickets are bought. The planes weren't busy right now for some reason. It was quite cheap. Now, for some people would argue that the 1980s was the quintessential decade for one-hit wonders, and other people might say that a lot of those one-hit wonders actually had other hits that you just don't remember, maybe in another country, or maybe it just wasn't that exciting, but they just were going off momentum. Who gets to decide what counts as a one-hit wonder? Well, I do. I'm the moderator. My word. And this is law. But enough about me. Let me introduce our panelists in the randomly selected order that they will be picking. Finally, someone's going to ask him to pick a few songs from This Is Your Mixtape, Michael Collins.
Oh, I love organized tones.
Going in second, we have a record collector from Seattle, everybody's friend, Brian McDonald.
Hi, I'm not on Twitter. Yay.
Good job. We're very proud of you. We've also got third, a writer, editor, and synth-pop bopper from Toronto, Melissa Beaupré.
I accidentally sold my hair crimper at a garage sale.
And you know he knows Tolkien, but he also writes about all music, from our own By-The-Bywater, Ned Raggett.
I'm all too often on Twitter. Sorry about that.
And although a 7-inch single sounds fine, for the real warmth, they turn to a 16-millimeter print from the Fiasco Brothers Watch a Movie, Sean Frost.
I wasn't even supposed to be here.
Well, now you're on this desert island trip.
And as your moderator, I'm going to go last so that my panelists here can snag all the good picks. Now, before we begin, I might as well point everyone to the excellent YouTuber Todd in the Shadows, who has a series called One Hit Wonderland. Mm-hmm. And he's probably covered a lot of the songs that we're going to talk about today already. So you should go and watch that after you watch this. Yes. Recommended. Okay, but let's begin. Michael, tell us, what is the first one-hit wonder from the 80s that's going to go onto your mixtape?
This is so exciting. So I've decided to begin. So I was 7 when the 80s ended, and my parents are a little bit older, so they stopped really following popular music in the early 80s around the time of my birth. So they had a huge vinyl record collection, but it was mostly stuff from the 60s and 70s. Now, one of the last vinyls that they acquired was a compilation of hit songs from 1980. It began with Blondie's Call Me, which is clearly not eligible. Blondie has many hits, but I loved putting it on, listening to Call Me, and then taking the needle off. But sometimes I would let it play through. And the next track was the S.O.S. band's Take Your Time, Do It Right, which I loved. I feel like this is a great introduction to the 80s, so it feels really nice that I get to begin here, because this was an early hit in 1980, and it still has a certain disco feel to it. It still has those 70s guitars. It's very funky. It's so good to dance to. I'd like to argue disco didn't die. It was removed from its, place of prominence. It was kicked off its throne. Straight white people hated it now, and it was important that they voiced that hate. But, people still danced. This is sort of like one of the last chart hurrahs of this kind of thing for a couple of years, I feel, before it could sneak back in a few other ways. Funky Town is sometimes described as the last disco hit, and this came just before it. I can remember hearing it socially a few times, like visiting someone's house in 2010 or 2011, and they would have a Pandora station playing, and it would come on. And then after a minute or so, they would sort of, ashamed, put it forward. I'd be like, no, man, let that play. It's such a good jam. And it makes me happy. And I feel like one-hit wonders can be a couple of things. It can be a really good, hardworking, artistic credibility band that had one crossover, or it can be sort of a bit of sunshine and fun. And for me, that's what this is. It's the latter category. This is just a really great extended jam that you can put on and just dance your ass off around your kitchen.
All right, Take Your Time, Do It Right by the S.O.S. Band. Did anybody else have that on their list?
No.
Well, I'm safe.
It's a good thing
great
you snagged
song.
it early. It's a great popper.
Yeah,
If anybody who's watching this live wants to say anything about any of the choices that people make, you can type it into the comment field and I can make it go big on the screen. So do that while they're talking and then we can make that happen. But yeah, Take Your Time, Do It Right. The disco's another last hurrah for the disco era.
Yeah, memory serves, the rest of the hits on that compilation vinyl were not particularly good.
One of the songs from that era that sticks with me. Now, you mentioned Funky Town, and that, of course, maybe is someone's choice. So, but picking a song by a band who had a lot of hits, "Let's Groove" by Earth, Wind, and Fire is a major. You know, that one really locks in for me. That absolutely defines the time.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Mikey. We will move on to Brian and let's find out what the next song will be.
So I chose, because it's one of the first 80s songs I heard, was Bette Davis Eyes by Kim Carnes. I wouldn't say it's one of the most tremendous songs of the 80s, but it's very formative in my life. It was the first pop song that I did not bond with my family over. Normally, we all listen to pop radio and watch TV together when I was very young. And we pretty much like what was on the radio, especially when we started in 1979. We were all into disco and stuff. But when Bette Davis Eyes went on, my family just turned off the TV. Then they turned off they switched to a different station because they hated Kim Carnes' voice on that song. She had a very conspicuous rasp when she sang it, and also they didn't like the fact that when she hit the note, she would sort of bend the syllables a bit, kind of like Mick Jagger was allowed to do that. Obviously, Kim Carnes wasn't. So I love the song though because I could sing along to the song because I wasn't a professionally trained singer when I was very young, and so it was a very fun song to kind of do like solo karaoke too in the car. So but it was also important that I found a song that I could just secretly be friends with, and most importantly, I needed a way to cope with exploring music completely by myself because my taste would get much weirder deeper into the 80s, and so that was the first song I remember sort of having to secretly be friends with. So
Fantastic.
I always loved her voice in that song. I even as a kid listening to it, I always thought her voice was spectacular, like this wonderful smokiness to it that I love that tone in women's voices singing. So that was one of the first ones that made a big impact on me too. I love that song.
Wasn't she also the guest vocalist on Tom Petty's "Stop Dragging My Heart Around"?
Oh.
Good question. While I look that up, I'll also say that this is one of my. It wasn't on my list because I never think of her as a one-hit wonder, and technically she isn't. She had other hits that were much smaller than this, but like a number 10 hit. But I don't know it. But it's fine. This totally counts. Michael and I recently wrapped up a project we were doing while in lockdown of recording covers of songs from A to Z or Z, depending on where you're from. And for B, we did Bette Davis Eyes because that was a song that I used to do with my old band, the Minor Thirds, all the time at live shows. I love it. Here's my question for you, Brian. So you listened to this song when you were a kid. Did you know how adult the song was at the time?
Absolutely not. I only remember the line, "She's precocious, and that's what it takes to make a pro blush."
Yep. It took me a long time to figure out what a pro blushing would mean in that case, that it's a prostitute blushing.
Oh, I always took it as professional.
Well, that's what they're professional at. But
Well,
I assume so. That's always been my reading.
I
I always thought it was crow. I always thought it was make a crow blush.
No, it's definitely
I didn't realize until now that pro could mean that. So, Chris, thanks for Yeah.
Oh, it's such a good song. Such a great
Histories of the 80s explained.
Oh, fantastic. And thank you for you got the first comment for having a great choice, which I agree with.
Yeah.
All right, who is next? Melissa, what are you going to show?
All right. Well, I feel like this one's going to be on everybody's list, but I chose Men Without Hats, Safety Dance.
Yay!
I think personally that is the best song of the 80s. It is equal parts cheese and camp and also like absolute danceability. When I used to go out to the clubs in like the late 90s, early 2000s, to like alternative and goth clubs, every single time this song would play, the dance floor would be packed no matter what. And you'd have all these people like just thronging the floor for this stupid song. I remember I don't think I remember ever hearing it in the 80s, but I do remember vividly hearing it in high school in the 90s, and then seeing the video for it on Much Music, which was like Canada's version of MTV, and then watching the pop-up video of this, which was absolutely hilarious because there was this theory that the song was about safe sex, and that's what Safety Dance was about. But actually, it was like his defense of like slam dancing in clubs. This song that's like got this like little person as a like some kind of like jester leading people through this medieval town to dance, and it's this defense of slam dancing, and it makes absolutely no sense, and it's just ridiculous, and it's still to this day like if I hear it come on, I start just grooving. It's so great.
All right.
I have absolutely nothing of any depth whatsoever to add about this song, except to say that like the video is just like it's perfect.
I'm very fond of songs that spell out their title.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's great. And it has like the S thing in it. It's so good. The whole thing is great.
And the little interruption and sing slays me every time.
And I do not understand the connection between the singer got like kicked out of a club for slam dancing or something. And so he decided to write this jolly little jingle that takes place in a medieval town. Like there's absolutely no connection there whatsoever for me, which makes it even better. So it's such a great song.
And for all the goofiness and for all that video, one of the many directed by Tim Pope, fantastic video director, that arrangement's tight. I'm sorry. It really comes down to it. I'm very surprised it hasn't been sampled, or has it been by somebody? I mean, it's like, it seems like it should be more re-famous all over again. So
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's got one of those like such singular sounds to it that sampling it would almost, I don't know, not do it justice.
I don't know. That hasn't stopped people before.
But yeah, it's a great song. I still get really excited when I hear it on the radio and all the different remixes of it. And it's fabulous.
And it's CanCon.
And it's CanCon.
All right. Excellent. Safety Dance. Fantastic choice. Let's see what Ned is going to be listening to.
All right. Well, I've sent you something in Slack there, Chris, so you might want to get ready to share those if you dare. So my choice is going to be Michael Sembello's Maniac.
Oh,
yes.
Now, here's the thing. I'm not going to be really talking about all the song all that much. I want to talk about the guy because there's a story here. So Michael Sembello starts off as an obsessed musician, becomes a noted studio musician, and very notably works with Stevie Wonder on Fulfilling This Is First Finale, and very importantly, Songs for the Key of Life. He is the guitarist throughout that entire album. So any song you hear off that album in particular, the guitar work, that's pretty much him. So he had already been established very much as a pro, and he started to write and place his own songs. And he wrote up the song Maniac, which he originally wrote for a slasher film. The chorus originally goes like this. This is how the chorus originally goes. He's a maniac, that's for sure. He will kill your cat and nail it to the door.
Oh, no!
So the producer, Phil Ramone, sort of convinced him. This is the detail from Wikipedia, which I believe is backed up by some actual testimony, saying you might want to change that. So he writes the song Maniac as this Steel Town Girl in the Saturday Night song for the Flashdance soundtrack. After Flashdance, What a Feeling by Irene Cara, it becomes the second hit from it and is, of course, a notable and big hit. But I mentioned he's a pro LA studio musician. He started turning into the stereotype of one. Now, there's no time for it right now, but look up sometime the video for the song Gravity that he did for another soundtrack for Cocoon. That video will make your head hurt. Let's just say that there's a singing dolphin chorus, as in dolphin puppets, and that's just the start of it.
I'm listening.
But it gets weirder. Now, I sent Chris some photos just now in Slack. He may not have a chance to share them, but by the turn of the millennium, he was still, and as far as I know, still is, just a working musician type guy. But he sort of went off into his own world. In that Gravity video, his beard was always shaved into sort of interesting shapes, shall we say. By the time of the early 2000s, he basically looked like if Rob Zombie was a techno raver. Then there was this album cover you see right here, whereas you can see he's loving the world a bit too much. But the real problem is that he came up with a website called A Spiritual Journey with Michael Sembello, which unfortunately is no longer available. I'm sorry about that. It was amazing. There was video footage of him literally swimming with dolphins. There was bits from earlier videos of his, and then there was the stuff he wrote on the site. I'm going to quote this, and then we'll wrap it up with here because I really don't know what to tell you. This is from his site at the time, and I found this in a thread that I posted on this a long time ago. It might have been part of the section of the site that he called his philosophy. Notice I didn't say philosophy. The head of it was spelled philosophy. As a young boy, Michael Sembello studied music with the same mystical awe and desire of a Zen monk. Instead of chanting sacred mantras for hours or spending years trying to snatch a pebble from a master's hand, his disciplines consisted of hours of intense musical Vedas and sacred scales, cosmic chords, and flying feats of harmonic wonder that would have had the god Thor of Valhalla working up a big sweat. And this bit concluded with the lines, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. A Steel Town girl on a Saturday night is having that." There you go.
Sure.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, amazing.
Oh boy. All right. Yeah, wow. Michael Sembello is a whole world of fun and delights.
Yes, Jared.
Jared, you're completely correct there.
You know, there is something transcendental about being a maniac on the dance floor. Yes, like
stealing your cat and nailing the head to the door. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my lord.
And as for the song itself, yeah, he sounds like Michael McDonald's cousin. There, the end. So, not much more to add.
There was an 80s horror movie called Maniac, and it was pretty terrible. So I'm glad he divorced it of the slasher genre.
All right, fantastic. Well, Sean, maybe you'll have something from a horror film to share with us.
From a film, yes, actually. The song isn't from a film. The song is Everlasting Love by Rachel. And I'm not here to talk about that song because honestly, I don't really, it's okay. But Rachel Sweet is amazing. She just unfortunately never really found her way into the mainstream. She tried a bunch of stuff, just as she was trying to get into country rock, disco happened, and she wasn't really going with the times. And so she kind of floundered a bit, had a hit with Everlasting Love in the early 80s, 81, I think. Probably best known because John Waters picked her to make the theme song to Hairspray, which is phenomenal. And I discovered her the way I discovered a lot of music these days by just wandering around a used music store and came across a best of collection. And I was like, best of who? And I started looking and I'm like, these songs sound amazing. So I just tried it. And she's great. She's really eclectic. She's got a song called Cuckoo Clock that's just, I want to see someone make an amazing kind of fantasy video out of it with all kinds of monsters coming out of this clock. But yeah, so Rachel Sweet, Everlasting Love.
Huh. Is that the My Everlasting Love song, or is that a different one?
Honestly, I can't remember. It's like most collections from one-hit wonders. You're like, 5 of these are brilliant, and then there's the rest. So unfortunately, yeah, the famous one is bland. Stick to Hairspray and Cuckoo Clock.
I like that you used the hit as a Trojan horse to talk about the artist, which I guess Ned did it as well.
Yeah, that move might happen again. Oh boy, I guess it's my turn. Unless anybody else has anything else to say about Everlasting Love. That's an interesting pick. I'm looking forward to checking out more of her work, of Rachel Sweet's work. All right. What shall I pick? Well, I was a child of the 80s, as they say. And so, like some other people on the panel, some of these are songs that meant a lot to me when I was a kid, which may say more about me as a kid and also as somebody who really didn't understand what was going on in a lot of these songs. But a lot of them were kind of my pump-up music. I kept picking those when I was going over the lists of one-hit wonders as I was trying to decide what to bring to the table here. And so I'm going to pick for my first pick a weird song, a song that's kind of a sequel to somebody else's song. It's Major Tom by Peter Schilling.
Yes, that was on the list.
Yeah.
It's so weird. It was a really, really pleasant experience because I actually haven't listened to it in a long time. So listening to it again yesterday was fantastic. It's so jittery. It's doing such a weird thing with the original. First off, it's just weird to write a song based on someone else's like that and not have it really be a response song, but just kind of this is what I would have done if I were writing that song. But it's got this fantastic jittery guitar and bass work going on. There's some really nice details, such as the first time the chorus comes in, he does the countdown of the rocket going off, and yeah, then that's fantastic. And it's one of the several songs that I found that are I've put on my short list that are sort of space nerd rock. I don't know. You can imagine what some of the others might be, and we'll see if I actually pick them for my later picks. But definitely the idea of a really janky, jangly song that's about going into space and how cool and exciting that would be was something that was really compelling to me when I was 8 years old, for whatever reason. This one doesn't have nearly as much prostitution as some of my picks do.
Got a theme going today.
I don't know anything else. He's a German guy, Peter Schilling, and it seems like his career has mostly been every 7 or 8 years putting out another remix of Major Tom, and you can't blame him. It's a good song. You should live with it and milk it as much as you can.
And there's an English version and a German version as well of that song.
Yes, and apparently, so it looks like he put out an entire album in English of his first album. I think it's his first album, but the album with Major Tom on it, which I guess was all space rock nerd songs. I don't know. I don't know if I want to check it out, but I'm glad it exists.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's one of my favorite songs too. Also because I'm a huge Bowie fan, so anything that even remotely orbits around Bowie, I love.
Yeah, when it was a hit, I knew Bowie from Let's Dance stuff, but I hadn't heard Space Oddity at that point. And yeah, as Chris says, it's weird. It's like I know there surely are other examples, but it's not a cover version of a song. It's an artistic reinterpretation of a song in the same medium, which is kind of weird to have that actually be a hit. I mean, there must be other examples. I'm sure there are, but it's odd.
Yeah, it's not like the response beef song, or it's not even like the follow-up song like Leslie Gore's follow-ups to It's My Party. Like, that's part of the trilogy, which is itself weird. But I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's very much like this.
Mm.
Well, I mean, Bowie has his own kind of response to his song in... the heck is it called now?
Oh, Ashes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Ashes to Ashes. Yeah.
Ashes.
Exactly. That's true.
But I mean, that's his own song, so that's not another artist.
Yes, and that came out after Major Tom, didn't it?
No, before.
No, before.
Yeah,
okay. All right.
Yeah.
This is why we bring experts onto the show. And yes, Baskerville, the background cat, continues to be in the background.
I admit I was wondering there for a second. Then I'm like, oh yeah,
that's what that is.
You seem to have some kind of devil floating on your shoulder, Chris.
She's very good at what she does. All right, that is our first round. Let us move on to our second round and find out what people are going to pick to pair with their original hits. Mikey, you did take your time and do it right. What are you going to have to follow that up on your mixtape?
Ooh, all right. Well, it's Far Away in Time. I was really afraid Melissa might steal this from me because as a fellow CanCon type, I have chosen Martha and the Muffins Echo Beach.
Yes! Yes!
Yay.
Oh my God, do I love this song. Echo Beach is a real place. It's here in Toronto. It is far away in time, but it is not far away in space from me. But I grew up in Newfoundland, which is far away both in time and space. And I did not know this song when I was young. I did not know this song when I was a teenager. I first heard this song when I was seeing the Burning Hell play a small show at the Ship Inn in St. John's, Newfoundland. And they finished off their set with a cover of Echo Beach. And it was so high energy. It just gave me such a euphoric feeling. And I immediately, of course, I had to seek it out. And it wasn't available on any of the Burning Hell's recorded material. So I went to the original, and oh boy, I love it just as much. If you're not familiar with it, I don't know how popular it was outside of Canada. I don't know. It's a nice jangly bit of like guitar pop. It's about being having a boring office job and dreaming about going back to Echo Beach someday. It's not particularly deep. I guess it sort of has that sort of like, boy, the corporate 80s suck. I want to break free kind of feel. But yeah, like it makes me think of other songs like the Bangles cover of Hazy Shade of Winter, things like that. It has that kind of similar driving energy. I like my one-hit wonders to really sort of punch me in the gut. And this one does. So
there you go, Echo Beach. Is this a song that our Americans are familiar with?
I am
vaguely.
Nadia very much approves.
Yeah, Nadia would know it. It's so good.
I was going to say, like...
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know it now. I only got into the Metro Music album like a year ago. So technically, yes, but very, very late in the game. So
it's great. I think it holds up wonderfully.
Yeah, it's a great album. I kind of hear it the same way I hear like a lot of like early 80s UK indie rock, basically. It obviously Martha and the Muffins were not a thing in the US. So it's kind of refreshing to hear it as an older person, actually. So
yeah, absolutely.
And that connection's there because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there were two Marthas in the band because I could be wrong, but Martha Ladley from the band ended up with the Associates during the time of the album Sulk over in the UK. So to play the UK connection there, and that's when they had their massive hit singles over there. And I'm a massive Associates fan, but they never had a hit over here, so they can't be talked about. I'm sorry.
Wikipedia confirms. Okay.
Good enough for me.
Also, we got an update here from Jared.
Yes.
All right. So that's a little CanCon from Michael. And we now move back over to Brian. You had Bette Davis Eyes. What goes with that?
Well, naturally, Electric Avenue by Eddie Grant.
Oh, you got it.
Hey.
So this one will be pretty short. Basically, especially at the time, I don't think I heard of a pop song, especially as catchy as that one, where the lyrics were just so blunt, acerbic, and depressing, basically. And it's incredible how Eddie Grant was able to pull off those lyrics and make everyone just bob their head to it across America. And I mean, my favorite lyric is "Deep in my heart, I abhor ya." So, but yeah, it's I didn't know at the time. Now I know it's a song reacting to the 1981 Brixton riots in London and his outrage about that. And apparently, whether he quote unquote lost the other songs he had written up until that point, he apparently lost some songs on a plane trip. In some sorts, so he had to quickly come up with a song to deliver to his record label or his management, and that was a song. And of course, it always seems like a lot of hits are last-minute things, and so I also find that fascinating. So
Cool.
Excellent. Yeah, that was also on my short list. And also another song from my youth that I loved and had no idea what was going on in the lyrics. Didn't matter. It was a good bopper. I also loved that line you called out. Fantastic.
I did like how one of his follow-up things was the theme song to Romancing the Stone of all films. So with the tie-in video showing him on the trail of Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. Amazing.
I had completely forgotten about that.
Yeah, that sounds familiar, but what's the name of that song?
Romancing the Stone, as in the movie.
Oh, it's just called Romancing the Stone. Yeah, that sounds familiar. I didn't realize that was the same guy.
Every day. Yeah.
There's another small hit called "Bring Me Hope, Joanna," I think. Anyway, when I heard that song, I thought, what happened to the bitter Eddie Grant? Like, that was the one that was scoring hits. Like, why are you trying to be upbeat? So
Money changes.
Success ruined him.
I'm not sad.
All right, Melissa, you gave us Safety Dance. What are you going to follow that one up with?
All right. Well, now I'm going to follow up with some more CanCon with the song that actually beat Safety Dance at the 1983 Junos to win, I think, Best Song, was Parachute Club's Rise Up.
Ooh.
Which is... oh my God, it's such a good gay song. It's absolutely wonderful. It was produced by Daniel Lanois, who's a Canadian producer that worked with like a million amazing artists like Willie Nelson, Bob Dylan, Brian Eno, U2, Neil Young, another Canadian band that I love called The Spoons. He worked with them. I actually just, when I was researching this song, I just found out that Daniel Lanois also produced the Red Dead Redemption 2 soundtrack, which is an amazing soundtrack to an amazing game. Anyways, it has been associated with the gay pride movement in Toronto since like the dawn of time, or since 1983, and that was where it was first performed. But my biggest association with it is at Jack Layton's funeral. Jack Layton was the leader of one of our political parties in Canada, one of the one that I happen to support, and he had taken the party really far, and in the late 2000s, early like 2010s, and people across Canada just absolutely adored him. He was absolutely wonderful. He was very involved in social justice and human rights issues in Toronto, and he eventually took that federally. He was just an incredible politician, and unfortunately he passed away in 2011, which was just absolutely devastating. And at his funeral, which was officiated by Brent Hawkes, who was a gay pastor in Toronto at the Metropolitan Community Church, which is just around the corner from where I live. He officiated Jack Layton's funeral, and Jack Layton's funeral ended with a beautiful letter written by Jack Layton, and then closed with this song, Rise Up, which is kind of a call to like celebrating who you are, celebrating yourself, starting a new movement, fighting for your rights, loving each other. It's just such a really good feeling song that every time I listen to it, it gives me hope for the world. It makes me feel like we're going to be okay, even when everything's going to shit around us. And so every time I hear this song, I think about Jack Layton. I think about like all the hope I had with him and all the stuff we still have to do. And it totally makes me emotional when I listen to it. And the music video is filmed, of course, in Toronto, and so it's got all these great Toronto landmarks in it, like Roy Thompson Hall, and like going through these streets of like typical Toronto, like Victorian row houses and stuff. It's got like all these people doing trampolines and backflips and stuff. It's a wonderful, wonderful song.
Yes. I'm so glad that you gave such a wonderful history of that.
Thank you.
No, it's great. I mean, Jack Layton, I get really
people who about him. Yeah,
of course. Like I can remember when he died, it felt like well, fuck.
yeah, it really did. Yeah, it really did. And like I remember, we went to his funeral. I mean, we couldn't get into Roy Thompson Hall.
No.
To his funeral, so we went to. They had like overflow areas and parks around Roy Thompson Hall, and so my husband and I and some friends of ours went, and they had it all on huge screens there and stuff. And I remember like just everybody wearing orange because the party color is orange. We all went down there wearing orange and waving flags, and we had huge pride flags, and we had like it was just just amazing. And when they played this song, like everybody was just up and dancing. It was absolutely incredible. And I remember Brent Hawkes saying, I forget what his husband's name is, but I remember Brent Hawkes saying as part of his speech, saying, every time Jack saw me, he would say like, "Hi, Brent, how is, his husband's name," and he would say, "Hi, Mr. Harper, how is Lorraine?" And I remember they cut to Stephen Harper in the crowd, who was our prime minister at the time, who's a jackass, but that's a different story. And he turned to Lorraine, and you could see him say, "Yeah, he always did say that," And I don't know, it was just this moment where like this guy who's a total jackass, even he could acknowledge that this was a remarkable man who just lost his life.
I'm so glad that you gave that, because I first became familiar with this song from a commercial for a Rising Crust pizza. They did use it for that in the late 90s. You might remember.
I think I do.
I think I like her story more.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Pizza's pretty important.
I appreciate us being able to have such a good, graceful transition out of a very sad story to leave a fairly emotionally neutral place for Ned. That was a lovely. I don't know the song.
Oh, you probably do. You probably heard it. I mean, they play it at like it's everywhere. Like I don't know. It's really good.
I might recognize it. I'll check it out afterwards. But but that was a fantastic. That was fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
Now I'm gonna go cry for the rest of the episode. Now, I think about it.
Okay. Well, while you take care of that, we'll switch the camera over to Ned, who is going to talk about someone who isn't Michael Sembello, but who will it be this time?
Not Michael Sembello. Yes, no, something totally different. Talking about Tainted Love, of course. So, see, that's of course. This is a classic case too of something that one hit wonder is contextual. Soft Cell did have other hits over in the UK, but over in the US, it was this, and it was only this. And the importance of Tainted Love to me is twofold. First, what a fantastic performance. I mean, the Gloria Jones song, the original, is absolutely wonderful. Written by Ed Cobb, who would work with Stan Dales. There's a lot of people in the background of the song, but then it had become a Northern Soul classic. That's how Mark Allman and Dave Ball knew it. Mark Allman in particular. They decided to cover it. We all kind of know what happens then. And it's a classic case of, is a massive hit song a millstone? And on the one hand, I mean, the performance is undeniable and everyone knows it. And it is not the first song that introduced me to what could be called, for lack of a better term, classic UK synth pop, let's say. The first one was probably Cars by Gary Newman, which I only kind of subliminally picked up when I was younger. Then there would have been Don't You Want Me by the Human League, but they had more than one hit, of course. So I would pick this one as the classic one-hit example of that shortly thereafter, because it just, it bursts out of the speaker. It is incredibly perfectly produced by Mike Thorne, an amazing arrangement. Dave Ball's instrument choices from a classic basic synth setup, wonderful. And Mark Allman's performance, the perfect example of desperation. Everything falling apart and yet in control at the same time. And he just arguably got better from there. And I'm a massive Mark Allman fan and have been to this day. New album came out this year. It's excellent. The thing is, though, that this is, again, a classic case of millstone. When something is over-identified with you as a performer, especially if it's not your song, sometimes that can grate. And one thing I liked about Mark's autobiography, which was, of course, called Tainted Life, is that he pretty much says, I think at some point in there, and he said it elsewhere, he's saying that the one big mistake they made was a simple one. You might remember that it's actually in full, it's a medley, with Tainted Love leading into a performance of Where Did Our Love Go by the Supremes. And as the song got that big in America, they would often play the full version of it with the medley. So it's great to hear both of them together. The problem is this, though. That's what they had on the A side. They had the A side and then the B side. Both sides were covers. That meant they got no songwriting royalties at all. If only Soft Cell had put on one of their original songs on the B side, they'd be rolling in it. They never did. So the royalty amount was less. And Marcus freely admitted that maybe was a mistake. So what can you do? There you go. But anyway, Dave Ball put Soft Cell formally to bed with a big one-off concert a couple of years ago. It's a fantastic DVD and live recording of it that's out called, I believe, simply Say Hello, Wave Goodbye, but of course. And a marvelous song. It always works. It still works to the present day, even if Mark may be a little sick of it. There you go.
It also has a fantastic video.
Yep.
This really weird Roman scene. It's a very strange early 80s video and recommended if you haven't seen it.
I don't think I've seen it. I know the song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also directed by Tim Pope, who did the Safety Dance video. He's everywhere.
No way!
Oh yeah. No, check Tim Pope's videography sometime. It's
I'm writing it down.
Maybe more well known for all the Cure videos. He did do the vast majority of the Cure videos. Did a bunch of David Bowie videos. The list goes on. Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw that video first. It was because you'd mentioned something about Pope somewhere, and I was like, I don't know who that is, and you were like, check out all these videos, and I was like, oh my word, this Tainted Love video is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love Soft Cell's version as well, but I definitely remember a cover a few years later by friends of Soft Cell called Coil, which was John Balance and Peter Christopherson. And Peter Christopherson directed the video for their Coil's cover of Tainted Love, which was, let's just say it was definitely different than the Soft Cell and the Gloria Jones version. Much slower. Obviously, if you can tell from the metaphors in the video, it's about all their friends dying of AIDS. And I believe the video is still playing eternally at a museum in New York as part of the benefit for AIDS. But Mark Allman plays a cameo in Coil's video, which I don't want to give it away because the video is fantastic. But yeah, Mark Allman obviously approved of the song and he's in the video. So.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Before we go on to our next song, just a comment. I believe this is about Michael's revelation on the last song, but I thought, you'd appreciate Kadow.
Yes.
Loving the punchline, setup and punchline. All right. Thank you very much, Ned, for Tainted Love. / Where Did Our Love Go? I don't know. Sean, you're up next. You've had Everlasting Love. What will it be now?
No love. No more love. This is I almost said Safety Dance. It's not Safety Dance. It's Snakedance.
Oh, yes.
One word from the Rainmakers. The Rainmakers were one of the few pop acts I was into in the 80s. And I honestly never knew that they had a hit with this one. It certainly is, of all of their music, probably the most likely to chart well because it's one of the only ones that isn't really, really snarky. They're fairly anti-establishment. They're fairly cynical. They have a song with all kinds of lyrics about inbreeding. They're a really strange band, but I really dug them in the 80s a lot. Yeah, I mean, look at these guys. They are 80s. They're so 80s. But yeah, I mean, just a standard kind of rock group with a synth, lots of driving rhythms, lots of attitude, lots of hair product.
I like all these things. I don't know this song. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Yeah, this is a new one for me as well.
Good.
I would have gone, oh yes, this shall be the single. I mean, yeah, that's probably going to do it better than some of their other ones. Nothing offensive in it. It's kind of upbeat. It's about coming together. It's very unusual for them.
All right, fantastic. Snakedance. It's a good title.
That's a great title.
And I want to make a mixtape with that and Bat Dance.
And that is some great 80s hair again.
Isn't that? I had that hair at the
Whoop.
time. So,
This is like half from the 80s period, half REM, half Kids in the Hall. That's fantastic. All right. I guess it's my turn to go. What am I going to follow up Major Tom with? Well, not a song that I listened to when I was living in the 80s. Yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't have heard it at the time. And not a song that was a hit in the US. So, it's my game. The rules can be whatever they want. This is a hit that was a hit overseas in a few different countries, in the UK in particular. And it's also from somebody who should never have had a hit at all. Is not thought of as, like, the fact that they have a hit is completely irrelevant to their career. And there are a lot of people who have one-hit wonder songs that just were never hit-making bands, were never anything like that. I'm going to go with Oh Superman. Woohoo! By Laurie Anderson, a fantastic long song with a driving ha 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 going out throughout the whole thing, and that unexpectedly became a hit in the dance scene in the UK at the time. She tells the story of sort of trying to getting a lot of, like, it had been pressed by a very small record label and it was doing very well, and they put it in order in the UK for like 10,000 copies, and she was like, how do you do that? So she tells a story. It's a Laurie Anderson story, so you have to take it with a grain of salt. This may not have happened, but she talks about going into the Warner Brothers office and sitting down with them and saying, so you guys make records, right? And they're like, yes. And she was like, I need to make 10,000 copies of my record. Somebody's asking for that. How do I do that? And they were like, let's draw up some paperwork. And that's why this experimental downtown New York artist ended up with a record career, which was never really the plan. And she took it to some amazing places. But in some ways, I mean, I love a lot of Laurie Anderson stuff, but in some ways, Oh Superman is one of her most remarkable songs. Certainly, probably the only one that could plausibly have been anything like a hit. As I was reading up on it today, I was reminded that apparently it was written inspired by the attempt to free hostages from the American embassy in Tehran that the U.S. did and failed miserably at, and lost several military lives in the process, and just made international fools about an incident which I really only knew because of Doonesbury. That's how my education system works.
I'm slightly older than you. I do remember the news reports at the time. So,
exactly. Yeah. But also it's just because it draws on so many things. I mean, it's got the subtitle for Massenet because it takes its first lines, "Oh Superman, oh Judge, oh Mom and Dad," from an aria from an opera by Jules Massenet, who's an opera composer. He wrote it in 1885 called Le Cid, as in El Cid, the Spanish thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is, that's a weird thing, but apparently she saw it on TV one day and was like, those are good lines. I'm going to borrow those. I grew up in New York, and every time I would pass by the main post station next to Penn Station, the main post office, where they've got neither snow nor rain nor gloom of night written on above the in the marble above the columns, I would get this song stuck in my head. Like, it definitely keeps reappearing because it just brings in so much of the world. And of course, famously, she performed it live just a few weeks after 9/11, and there's a series of lines in it about their American planes made in America, which obviously was originally meant to refer to the incident in Tehran, but suddenly took on tremendously unexpected new meanings in that context. And, performing a show with that song and hearing that resonance 2 weeks after 9/11, playing in Lower Manhattan, was quite a thing to do. I wasn't there, of course, but it still impresses me. So yeah, Oh Superman, total classic, a one-hit wonder, but not the kind that you normally talk about as a one-hit wonder.
I mean,
it's dance clubs.
It's hard to dance to. I don't understand how it became a dance hit.
Was it a remix or was it the album cut that they would be dancing to?
I think there was eventually a remix, but it was originally just the 6 or 7 or 8.
And it got to number 2.
Yeah,
I'm doing that, Mike.
In the national charts over there.
Yep. A lot of people hated it, but John Peel liked it, and a lot of other people liked it. So.
Yeah, and I mean the British charts were purely on sales, so
Also has an amazing video if you haven't watched it. It's terrific.
I will say, in the alternate universe where popular tastes are fully aligned with my tastes, Smoke Rings would have been her big pop hit, but
that has a less good video. But yes. All right. Time for round 3, and this will be our final round, it looks like. But we will we'll mention the rest of the things on our shortlist after that. So we will take it back to Mikey. What are you adding to go with Take Your Time, Do It Right, and Echo Beach?
I am adding maybe a silly choice, but I grew up hearing this as the theme to fashion television.
Yes.
I know Melissa,
exactly
yes. This is Obsession by Animotion. It's an amazing song. To me, it has that spirit of the 80s that we sort of stereotypically assign to the decade. It is bombastic. It is driving. It is about unbridled greed and lust, and it's appetite. Tell me who you want me to be so you will sleep with me. I mangled that a little bit, but like that is a line that's repeated quite a bit. It has that kind of Human League male-female voice trading off. It is got that wonderful synth line that they used for the fashion television theme. Fashion television was a thing we had in Canada, and as like a little 9-year-old proto-gay boy, I was quite attracted to it. This very chic and energetic and vaguely European-seeming sort of music, as these models would like walk down the runway with like their dead-ahead stares. Bum, 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 ba-dum. So good. It still brings me to a very specific kind of place when I hear it now. So, yeah. Fan.
I associate this song with Star Trek, The Next Generation. And the reason why is because that show, fashion television, would be the show that came on right before Star Trek, The Next Generation. So we would be sitting down to watch that, and that we would just hear the end of fashion television.
Melissa, I have a very, very similar thing, but for me, it was the theme from The Young and Restless.
This is like a very particular Canadian experience, I think. And Jeannie Becker, who hosted fashion television and was the wife of what's his face, that was the producer of like Much Music and all that. Anyways, she went to my high school. That's my claim to fame.
Oh, wow.
Amazing. And the weird thing about that song is that's actually a cover version. It is not their original song. The original was a combination of Michael DeBars, or DeBars, however you say his name, and Holly Knight, who did it as a soundtrack cut the year before for the utterly useless film. And this is a terrible, terrible film, A Night in Heaven, in which it just... Yeah, those, I can see from those reactions. Yeah, that's look up that film sometime. Look up the trailer or a clip from YouTube. You're like, this is a film that could have only existed in the 80s with this plot starring these people. And so, and that's where the song originally surfaced, and then it got covered. And there you go.
Oh, very good. I need to look up this original. I didn't know it was a cover. I did very little research for this. I was just going to talk about my own feelings and experiences.
That's fine. That's why we have.
I know, but like, I've learned this is a cover, so I have to see if it matches.
No.
There will be movies that are only worthwhile for the soundtracks.
All right. Fantastic way to wrap up your tape. Brian, you've got Bette Davis Eyes and Electric Avenue, so you're picking all songs I love. Let's hear what your third one's going to be.
So the third one will follow pretty closely. I would say it's Herbie Hancock's Rockit.
Oh.
So keep in mind, in 1983, when I first heard this song, I had no idea that Herbie Hancock was already like a legendary longtime jazz musician. So as far as I knew, he came from the future to give us this music video and song, and then went back to the future, basically. No pun intended. And I'll get to the music video. I'll get to the music video. But the thing about Rockit is, what was it like the first song that had like not only like record scratching, but like throughout the song? I mean, I kind of feel like it's the first time I heard a record scratch in a pop song. And it also, for me, ushered in what I'll now call like the third wave of hip hop, which is the mid to late 80s era when we had electro and 808 drum machine beats. So Run DMC is part of that, and the West Coast finally really comes in with electro up and down the coast. And I clearly remember it was when Rockit came out that breakdancing became a national thing. Like there were breakdance movies, if you guys remember. So, and so the thing, okay, so yeah, there's all that. So it was my introduction really to hip hop and rapping, even though the song itself barely had any vocals. It just had Herbie Hancock just with vocoded sound bits saying, "Don't stop it," and stuff like that. So, but the music video was incredible. I loved it. I loved that it terrified everyone, and it didn't terrify me, and I don't know why. It was just a bunch of mannequins or half mannequins just sort of going back and forth in a room with a creepy stork skull eavesdropping. What's up? What's wrong with that? It's a fun music video, and it was directed by Godley and Cream, who they directed a lot of great 80s music videos, and they were in the band 10cc. But apparently Herbie Hancock hated the video, so he disowned himself from the video and Godley and Cream, which I didn't know that until I looked it up recently. But yeah, I mean, that song being all percussion, yeah, thank you. The song being like all percussion front and center, that became my litmus test for, am I going to like this 80s song? 2 thumbs up. Because any song that's just only percussion really grabs me. So that was like a huge one-hit wonder for me.
Oh, fantastic choice. I only found out a little while ago, as I was starting to get into the rest of Herbie Hancock's career, that Rockit was him. I knew Rockit, I just didn't know it was a Herbie Hancock song because I didn't know who Herbie Hancock was until much later. And then it took me a while to realize that I'm listening to the guy who did Rockit. Who knew? And Godley and Cream, yeah, both Godley and Cream were sort of a one-hit wonder themselves with Cry, and then 10cc was also like a one-hit wonder band, wasn't it?
Yeah, they had I'm Not in Love. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but their video career is fantastic, and I did once spend an evening with our friend Adam watching nothing but Godley and Cream videos. You can do that in about an evening. It's a good time.
I too love the video. I wasn't aware people found it scary.
It's upsetting.
I don't find it upsetting.
I don't either, but I get it.
I don't know if it was the Grammys or the American Music Awards, but he performed. It was up for a nomination or something in the appropriate year. And even if he just owned the video, he had a lot of the mannequins and the other things like doing moves, including some people dressed up like the weird mannequins to do actual moves and things like that. So that might be one worth seeking out as a comparison point.
Yeah, that is on YouTube, and it's a terrific video.
Nadia agrees.
Nadia agrees. Great video. Totally a great video. All right. Well, you've done the trifecta of songs that I quite loved in my youth and still today. Jared, you wait until we're done. We're not going to be that much longer. Now you open in another tab and then you save it for later. Okay.
No dessert till you finish your vegetables.
All right. We have to find out what Melissa's third choice is after Safety Dance and Rise Up. Let's hear it.
All right. Well, I have like a whole list I could have picked from, but I'm going to close it out with some more CanCon. Canada has a really dope electric music industry, and we've made a lot of really good electronic and like synth pop type stuff. Probably the best electronic stuff to come out of Canada has been Skinny Puppy by far. I love them. But this is another Canadian electronic band who nobody knows, and I think this is their only song. And it's called Living on Video by Transx, a Montreal electronic band. And this song is so quintessentially corny 80s Canadiana. It's absolutely beautiful. It's got this great little thumping, cute sort of disco-y beat, I guess. And like all good Canadian songs, it has lyrics in both English and French, which is great. God, I don't even know how to describe it, like without actually making you listen to it and watch the video. Here, I'm going to post a picture of like what the band looks like, and then what the actual like I guess album looks like. But they look very, they have a guitar and it's so great. I love this song because it's another one of those science fiction-y, like living in electricity songs. It has a lot of like pew 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 sounds in it, like laser guns firing. My husband loves this song. Every time it comes on, like if we're in the car, he like dances like crazy to it. Yeah, it reminds me in ways of Visage's Fade to Grey in that it has English and French lyrics and it makes no sense and I have no idea what's going on. There is nothing serious about this song at all, except for the fact that it is amazing to dance to. They're from Montreal. It has French lyrics like Sur le faisceau de lumière, and it's just absolutely fantastic. And as a side note, there's also a transport company in Canada called TransX. So every single time I see one of their trucks on the road, I immediately break out into the song and start going like doo 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 doo. It's so good.
Amazing.
It's stellar song to dance to. English and French. You cannot get better than this song.
Oh, I feel so patriotic right now.
I know.
This is another one I don't think I know.
Oh, it's great.
This song got played in LA where I grew up a lot in 1984. I think. Really? Yeah, I love that song. I have the original Canadian 12-inch, which has Vivre Su Video, the ones where he sings in French, and he sings an octave higher on that, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, it's really weird.
And he sounds more frantic in the French version than the English version. But yeah, talk about another amazing video. They're like, especially, and I'm going to try and do the best acting I can in the webcam. But when he does the lyric, stop, he points in the camera with this most intense look. Stop. So another video I recommend. So
amazing.
It's so much fun to dance to. And again, this is one of those songs that also used to play a lot at goth clubs when I used to go to them. And I don't know why this song in particular, but it was just so much fun to dance to. And you could do all those dramatic moves like the stop. It was just so good. So good. I unironically love this song.
Fantastic. Wow, living on video. Another one I'm going to have to look up. And I'm excited to do so. All right. Ned, you've given us Maniac and Tainted Love, which sounds more ominous now that I put them together. What are you going to give us for the number 3?
We're going to do a 180 here. So I gave you, sleek American soundtrack pop. I gave you desperate on the edge UK or synth pop reinterpretations of American classics, whatever. Now it's just time for something utterly trashily American, a really bad novelty hit from the 1980s. Jump in the Saddle Band's The Curly Shuffle.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
This is a classic example of a micro genre I would call 80s bar bands get an undeserved hit. And this is the type of thing that basically the decade culminates with Roadhouse, when it comes to bar band worship, you could say. And of course that was Jeff Healey, so there's your CanCon. But in that one, but Jump in the Saddle were like so many of these other bands who would suddenly have like maybe one hit somewhere. Like, what was it, John Cafferty, the Beaver Brown Band, or things like that. And there are other ones. And they would get, vaguely famous, and then no one would ever hear from them again. And it was just this, it was sort of like, you could almost say it was like, the midlife crisis of rock. It was working itself out that this is all you would get, while hip hop and synth and everything else and, hard metal was all coming up and sort of like, yeah, okay, fine. And this song is just, it's done by this functional bunch of guys from Chicago, Illinois. If you look at, look up the album cover sometime. It's just these just random dudes who are clearly in a bar band, all in bed together. Which I know is more salty than it is, but it's more like, why? And they're all pulling very goofy looks. And the Curly Shuffle song, it's a tribute to Curly of the Three Stooges. I assume the original one. Here's the thing. I feel nothing for the Three Stooges at all. It was like, their second, third wave of nostalgia. It's one of those things that, I understand they were popular. I understand they have their place. I think the personal story behind what they did, the actual story of their success, is a very interesting one. I just don't find their product very interesting at all. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm missing something. And it's also just one of the cases where you've got, it's just this weird unearned nostalgia from where I sit, especially being the age I was. It was one of those things that adults liked. It's one of those things that, Mel Gibson's character in the Lethal Weapon movies liked. not me, and and stuff like that. And the Curly Shuffle is just this obnoxious, goofy little song, which was a big hit, where the guy is just singing along about the Curly Shuffle and then doing very, very bad Curly impersonation and Wise Guy and all that. It's like, why did you exist? What happened? What was this? Why was this a hit? Why won't you go away? Which they did. And this is the one detail from Wikipedia I like about them, which shows that they had some sort of sense of their own limitations. And I'll read the sentence here, and I hope this is in fact all true. In fact, from a description here that my friend Stephen Thomas Erlewine wrote about this for the All Music Guide. And apparently, the band entered into negotiations for a follow-up album in 1984. The label wanted them to record the song Shaving Cream. Slipped on up, I love shaving cream. You know that one. Wanted them to record that song for their next single. The band did not favor it. They recorded the song, both added lyrics critical of the label, and were soon dropped. And again, that's how to bow out. That's a label. Fuck you. And there you go. That's all I have to say.
I completely forgotten about that song, and the minute you said the name, I heard the whole thing through my head in about 5 seconds. That was amazing. That was amazing. Yeah. I grew up like probably in the third wave of the Three Stooges being popular, and I used to watch it as a kid in the 80s, like Saturday mornings with my stepdad. And I remember that song in particular because I was like, I don't know, 8, and like, oh, it's about something I know. But oh my Lord.
I loved that song. I loved that video. Be careful, you do it.
I feel like pain thinking about that song. Like it hurts to think about.
A song that provokes a range of emotions. That's a sign.
That was not the novelty hit that I was expecting to show up on the list, but that will do. There were plenty to choose from,
but I decided to just go for it and pick this one.
and we still have 2 more people to choose, so we'll see what comes up next. And yes, Megaphonic FM, a functional bunch.
While this was still playing on MTV, the micro almost hit video No More Madonna came on. So it was a very good week for my friends and I.
Fantastic. Well, Sean, you get to pick next. You've given us Everlasting Love and Snakedance. What are you going to grace us with this time?
I might have hinted that I'd have another one that I really don't want to talk about the song. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because it's a Canadian artist. And I'm a guest on a Canadian show. So this is One Night in Bangkok.
Yes.
By Louise Roby.
Not the Murray Head version.
Not the Murray Head version. This was like a year later. Louise Roby, going by just Roby, because you only had that. If you had one name in the 80s, you were big. It was her one and only hit. The video is so amazing because it is pure 80s, just absolute everything you expect in an 80s video for just surreal, what are you showing us now kind of stuff as she tries to look important singing about chess. But the reason I didn't hear this version until this year, and the reason I looked it up was because of a Canadian show that I was really huge into, just as syndicated shows started flooding the market as cable channels needed content. So this was the show Friday the 13th, the series.
Oh my God.
And she was one of the stars of it. Now, the show has nothing to do with Friday the 13th, the movie series, but one of the producers had the rights to use the name, so by gum they did. And this lasted 3 seasons of 2 cousins who inherited a secondhand shop full of cursed items. And the concept of the show is that they had to go retrieve all of the cursed items so that their uncle's soul could leave hell. And Roby.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, why does she only have one name? Like everyone else on the show has full names, and it's just Roby. So I started looking into it and found out she had a pop hit, and I was like, really?
Amazing. I need to hear this.
Yeah, I had no idea this existed. I'm very excited about this now.
I have been sitting here terrified that one of you was going to pick this because I was like, probably popular in Canada.
You have out CanCon the Canadians here.
Indeed.
That's good.
Yeah, when you were talking, I was like, I didn't know Murray Head was Canadian. I was like, oh no.
Man, I loved the Murray Head version of the song when I was a kid, and mostly because it was just weird and I guess about chess, but again, clearly it was also about sex.
Love the waistline sunshine.
Exactly. It was so camp and so ridiculous, but again, like so many of the songs that I enjoyed as a kid, it was about sex, and there's no way for me to know that.
Every song is, even if it's not.
So
And the gift to you.
Thank you. I have
All
that
right.
mark to watch over and over again right after this.
Exactly.
Along
All
with
right.
the
I was
shuffle.
going to say for the Murray Head version, didn't Tim Pope co-write the song along with
Tim
Ray and
Rice,
Bjorn?
not Tim Pope.
Tim Rice. Okay, I'm thinking,
Tim
all
Pope's a
kids are the
talented
same.
guy, but as far as I know, he's not a songwriter, except for that one random song of his, "I Want to Be a Tree," which is his own story.
Yeah, I'll Tim
I'm
is
not
the
kidding.
same
Look
to
up
me.
the Tim Pope "I Want to Be a Tree" video, and also look up the alternate video where he has people like Susie Sue, Paul Weller, and other people sort of contributing their own versions of it. Trust me.
But it was co-written by Benny and Bjorn from ABBA. Was that their last writing credit on a U.S. hit, a major U.S. hit, or did Frida
Original?
come
I
back?
think so. Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think it is.
Yeah, because the Frida song was a couple years before. So yeah.
All right, fantastic. Well, it's time to wrap this up with my last hit. I have chosen, what the heck did I choose? I chose
A great hit.
Major Tom, and I chose Oh Superman. And now to wrap it up, I'm going to choose something that I did not know about until very recently. And it was never actually a hit. It got an inordinate amount of MTV play in the early days when MTV only had 3 videos to go through. And so that's what makes it count as a hit. But it's a completely great and weird song, and I've been torturing Michael with it recently. It's called Dog Police by the band Dog Police.
Oh God.
Boy.
So-
I did
Not know this.
So Dog Police is a song about a guy. It's from a Memphis band in Tennessee. It's from a Memphis band in Tennessee. That makes a lot of sense. It's from a small band in Memphis, and this was, I guess, a side gig of theirs to do a silly band and put out some novelty songs. And they were kind of inspired by Devo, who surprisingly didn't come up, even though I guess they would technically count as a one-hit wonder for Whip It. But nevertheless, it's a weird song. It's a weird song that has some jarring, not quite time changes, but some jarring rhythms in the middle of it about a guy going out on a date, and his girlfriend is wanted by the dog police. Where are they coming from? Dog police.
Oh my
Nobody
God.
knows who they are.
This is much scarier than the Rockit video, let me tell you.
Yes, yes, it is.
Upsetting in that way that experimental early 80s
And in the
videos
80s,
can
but
be.
dogs.
Oh man, Dog Police. It's a really weirdly catchy song, weirdly upsetting video. And it was enough of a hit with enough people that in 1990, many years after it came out, because I don't remember what, I want to say it's like 82 or 81. But 82. But many years after it came out in 1990, they decided to make an 8.5-minute television pilot called The Dog Police. They changed up the lyrics a little bit, but it was going to be about some dog police who worked in a police, what do you call them? Bureau. at the police office. Department. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. They worked at a police department with a bunch of humans, but they were the best cops, even though they were not really reliable. And man, as you can imagine, in 8.5 minutes, they get through as many dog-based jokes as you can hope for. But also what's really notable about this video, this pilot, which, never went anywhere, of course, is that the cast includes Jeremy Piven and a very young Adam Sandler right before he made his breakthrough on Saturday Night Live. It's on YouTube. It's totally worth watching if you care about that sort of thing. If people in weird makeup and Adam Sandler doing terrible dog puns for a TV show that never was going to go anywhere are your thing, thank you. Yes, exactly. It's great, and it's definitely worth the video. It's definitely a song that you should get stuck in your head as soon as possible. So that's Dog Police by the band Dog Police. Also, I do love it when a band puts out a song with their own name.
The Hounds of Love are hunting.
I just that you mentioned the show, and I'm like, didn't that stupid show Fish Police come like a year or two later? It's almost like I thought it's like the dog one didn't work. Repurpose everything, make it fish puns, and we'll do that. So it's like, why?
1992. You're right. I don't know if there's any relationship between the two. It's a good point. Anyway, yes.
I thought you were going to pick Video Killed the Radio Star.
Well, I could have, but that actually came out in the 70s.
That's true.
Like mid 1979 at the earliest. So barely.
Now we're going to be doing every decade on this series eventually. So that is what I'm going to leave you all with. But now it is time for us to bring out our dead, and time for our audience members to name a song that they would have included on their lists. So let's begin. Mikey, you gave us Take Your Time, Do It Right by the S.O.S. band, Echo Beach by Martha and the Muffins, and Obsession by Animotion. What else what got sniped from your list, and what else did you want to talk about?
Very little got sniped from my list. I did have One Night in Bangkok, but the Murray Head version, so I could have talked about it, I guess. Let me see. I have Funky Town. I have... Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Tainted Love, yes. That was on there. I had Come On Eileen. I had Relax. I had Putting on the Ritz, because I liked that when I was a kid. I had 99 Luftballons.
Yeah, I did too.
I have... Now, this one has recently come back to my life, both from the Todd in the Shadows episode on it, and because Spotify's algorithm and its infinite wisdom threw the Frontline Assembly remix at me, and it was exactly what I needed in my life. Rock Me Amadeus.
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm not ashamed.
The FLA version of that is so amazing.
And It's Raining Men, because it made me feel a certain way when I was a little kid. And because it's my name, Mickey by Tony Basil. So...
Very good. Excellent. All right, Brian, you had Betty Davis Eyes, Electric Avenue, and Rockit. Can't really complain about listening to those songs forever, but what else was on your list?
So this may or may not count. I had You Spin Me Around Like a Record by Dead or Alive. That was their biggest 80s hit. I don't know if Brand New Lover counts as another big hit. I had Don Quixote by Magazine 60. I think that was definitely more of an LA hit, because it was by a French synth-pop band trying to play with the Spanish language, but it got released by a small label in LA called Baja Records, so it became like a local hit here. So 19 by Paul Hardcastle, Mickey by Tony Basil, maybe not their only hit, Word Up by Cameo, Tarzan Boy by Baltimora.
Oh, yes.
Two of Hearts by Stacy Q, and Murray Head's One Night in Bangkok.
Very good. I just listened to 19 this morning, trying to again do research and prepare for things people might say. And wow, that's a weird song.
Yeah, it kind of falls into the like one of those like Electric Avenue. It's a song that's catchy, but it's actually pretty hard when you hear it. Except it's all samples, which is tremendous.
Well, there's like a gospel chorus or something as well.
Right. That's right.
Because 19 is was the average age of soldiers sent to Vietnam. That's where the title comes from, and it's a response to that. And at some point,
19.
yeah, there's a bit of like 19, and then the gospel singers come in and like, it was just 19, and it's weird, but it was charming and bizarro and great.
And the fact that that was a hit in Reagan America still fascinates me. So
yeah, I don't know how it managed to do that.
Yeah. Melissa, you gave us Safety Dance by Men Without Hats, Rise Up by the Parachute Club, and Living on Video by Trans X. What else was on your mind?
A few that would have been sniped if we had gone longer. I had Big Countries in a Big Country, which was ironically written by a Scottish band, which is not very big at all. Next Midnight Runner, Come On Eileen, including the DJ Lobster Dust mashup version where he mashes it up with LL Cool J's Mama Said Knock You Out and calls it Knock Out Eileen. Highly recommend you look it up. It's better than the sum of its parts. It's wonderful. I had Dead or Alive, I had Baltimora, Tarzan Boy, Thomas Dolby, She Blinded Me with Science. I tentatively had Devo on there, but I would argue that they're not a one-hit wonder. Murray had, of course, I had General Public, Tenderness, which is amazing. Peter Schilling, which got sniped. Dream Academy, Life in a Northern Town. Another bit of CanCon, The Shuffle Demons, Spadina Bus. Is another amazing song. Great music video. I had When in Rome, The Promise. Gary Newman, Cars, because Gary Newman's a douche, but I love his Bowie look. And Icicle Works, Birds Fly, Whisper to a Scream.
Fantastic. Nice. Great. Ned, you gave us Maniac by Michael Sembello, Tainted Love by Soft Cell, and The Curly Shuffle by Jump in the Saddle. So enjoy that playlist. What else were you thinking about?
The entirety of Michael Sembello's recorded career, and that was it. No. Song choices were sniped. 99 Love Balloons was mentioned. I was thinking about Major Tom by Peter Schilling. Also on my list, though, let's see. New Shoes, I Can't Wait. Marvelous song. Jermaine Stewart's We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off, which a bunch of us were actually talking about earlier in the week. A very, very strange and sad song in retrospect. Nucleus's Jam on It, which I don't know how big that was, or was more an East Coast thing, but oh man, that thing, yeah, that rolled into the skull. Let's see. Nina's Millennial and Love Balloons. A couple of you mentioned that. I was thinking Walla Voodoo's Mexican Radio. Wonderfully weird song, and I was thinking Stan Ridgway just the other day. He's had a really great career, a lot of wonderful music. Check out his Bandcamp site. He just has continued to the present day. Funky Town by Lip Sync. I was definitely thinking about that. I know Mikey selected that, but I'm really surprised nobody picked this one. This is my choice between Curly Shuffle and this song, and I do not regret Curly Shuffle, but the fourth round, this was my choice. Rockwell, Somebody's Watching Me. I mean, that's your 80s one-off here. And the weird thing was, I found out that song wasn't nepotism. It was Berry Gordy's kid, but at the time he had a falling out with Berry Gordy, and he was actually working with one of Berry Gordy's exes, and somehow Michael Jackson guy, weird. And of course, Berry Gordy released it anyway because money. So there you go.
Terrific.
Do love that song.
Sean, you gave us Everlasting Love by Rachel Sweet, Snakedance by the Rainmakers, and One Night in Bangkok, but not by Murray Head by Roby. So what else was on your mind?
I had a pretty short list because I tended to stay away from things that I knew were big hits because like my experience with 80s pop is from like viewing it from afar. And I'm just making my way back into it these days. So I did also have Walla Voodoo's Mexican Radio as a potential. I had Mojo Nixon's Debbie Gibson is Pregnant with a Two-Headed Love Child.
That's a good title.
Very much a song.
Mojo was always good at titles. And I don't know if you knew about Martha Muffin or whatever that name was, but he did have a song, Stuffed in Martha's Muffin, which was about one of the days, Martha Quinn. I had Paul Hardcastle's 19. And last one was Modern English, I Melt With You.
Yes.
My brother and I listening to that were like, "Book Stop the World." Yeah, okay. Yeah. Next time.
Do at that point. Again, if anybody watching this wants to throw up a comment, type it in now and I'll share it after I've shared my list. But I gave gave myself to listen to forever Major Tom by Peter Schilling, Oh Superman by Laurie Anderson, and Dog Police by Dog Police. It's fair. It's really, really great.
Jesus.
And also on my list, I also had Nina's 99 Luftballons, which, as somebody who had to learn a bit of German to pass an exam in grad school, learning the first verse of that was a lot of fun. It was probably the best part of that experience. I also had a few other of my sort of childhood pump me up songs from when I was 8 or 9 or whatever, including Electric Avenue, which got mentioned, but also Matthew Wilder's Break My Stride.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a video for that, and boy, he is whiter and uglier than I would have guessed. What a terrible song that is, but it meant a lot to me as a kid. Much better than I remembered, and something I really think somebody needs to rediscover and cover is Quarter Flash's Harden My Heart. Fantastic song out of Portland. Yeah, that's great. And the video is kind of low rent amazing. There's a great scene where she's drumming on a bunch of people in what I would call like Daft Punk style helmets. There's a lot of little details in the video that are totally terrific. Final Countdown by Europe, although really a one-hit wonder, but still that's the only one of their songs I know. I looked up their other hits and I was like, nope.
How could I have forgotten that?
The Neverending Story by Lamal.
Yes.
Obviously also had another one-hit wonder with Kajagoogoo, his band, at one point, at least as far as I'm concerned. What else am I missing here? Oh, yes. And also another Take On Me, which obviously a-ha had a lot of hits overseas, but in the U.S., they really are a one-hit wonder band. Like that is the one-hit wonder for a lot of Americans.
Two. They had two. Sun Always Shines on TV went top 20.
Yeah,
otherwise
I never heard that song until I was much older. So.
I think the magnitude of Take On Me was so
huge,
gigantic. Even a top 20 hit was secondary compared to it. I mean, that was the first song I thought of when I think of the phrase '80s one-hit wonder. So
exactly.
I think it was so obvious none of us picked it.
Because even though they had 10, 12 hits, they all came off of one album, just over a year.
Also, another someone else, a song that was really important to me when I was a kid, in that same pump 'em up way, and in the same, I don't actually know what the song is about because I think it's about vampires or something, and I was taking a lot of power from it. Not a one-hit wonder, but it's a cover of someone who was a one-hit wonder in other countries, which is Laura Branigan's Self-Control, and therefore Roff Self-Control, the Italian original version of it, which is very similar to the Laura Branigan, but not quite as good, and also with the weird English, Italian-speaking English accent, which is fine. But like Laura Branigan's is amazing, and the video is fantastic as well. So that was my list. Did anybody? Nobody has left a comment saying anything else. So our listeners are.
We've covered all bases.
We've overwhelmed them.
I mean, Flock of Seagulls was not mentioned, so.
Oh, they were playing songs that were not.
I was half thinking of that. Yeah. So.
But yeah, so we're going to wrap up then, I guess. Thank you all for watching, and thank you for joining us, Mikey Collins.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us, Brian McDonald.
Thank you. I'm still not on Twitter, by the way.
Good. Thank you, Melissa Beaupré, for joining us.
Honorable mention goes to Loverboy.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, here we have one. I would have said Duel by Propaganda.
Nice.
Yeah. And thank you again, Ned Raggett, for joining.
Thank you.
And thank you, Sean Frost.
Time to get back in my box.
I'm your host, Chris Piuma. We'll see you next week with another topic and another set of Take Your Picks. And we have theme music now. Yay!